The Galactic Council's betrayal of humanity would be the last mistake those alien bastards ever made. They'd pay the ultimate price once our battle fleet arrived. "This is an outrage!" Ambassador Bobby Grant slammed his fist on the sleek metal conference table, his shout echoing through the vaulted chamber. 12 alien species shifted uncomfortably in their seats, eyeing the fuming human. "The Zorgons are coming. You've known for months and said nothing," Bobby growled at the council leader, a lanky, grey-skinned Nasat named Tharos. "We had a right to know, to prepare." Tharos waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Humanity is primitive, volatile. You cannot be trusted with such sensitive matters. This council has decided to surrender to the Zorgons. It is the only way to avoid bloodshed." Bobby jumped to his feet. "Surrender? So the Zorgons can enslave us, experiment on us, exterminate us? Humanity won't go down without a fight." "You misunderstand," Tharos clicked. "The Zorgons will spare council species in exchange for resources, technology, territory." The Nasat representative beside him leaned in, whispering in a hissing language. But Bobby's translation implant caught every word. "The humans. Give them Earth." Bobby's blood ran cold. The council wasn't just surrendering. They were offering up humanity as a sacrificial lamb, leaving Earth defenseless before a ravenous enemy. He had to warn them, had to give humanity a fighting chance, or every man, woman, and child on Earth would be annihilated or enslaved. As the council droned on, Bobby was already racing for the shuttle bay, a desperate plan taking shape. Their betrayal would not go unanswered. Humanity would show them the price of treachery. And when the human battle fleet arrived, the Galactic Council would pay in blood. Bobby raced down the polished corridors of the Council citadel, mind reeling from the alien betrayal. He slammed his hand on the biometric lock of the shuttle bay doors, but before they could slide open, a harsh voice barked out. "Halt! You are under arrest, human." Commander Zale and a squad of Nasat security officers, pulse rifles trained on Bobby, blocked his path to the HSS Odyssey. "The Council's ruling is final. You will return to your planet and await the Zorgons." Bobby's hands curled into fists. "Like hell I will. Get out of my way, Zale." "You are in no position to make demands." Zale's yellow eyes narrowed. "Your species is—" A blue stun pulse cut him off mid-sentence, dropping him to the floor in a twitching heap. Mike Tanaka stood at the Odyssey's open ramp, an arccaster in hand. "Come on." Bobby sprinted up the ramp as Mike laid down covering fire, the whine of pulse blasts filling the air. He dove into the pilot seat, hands flying across the controls. The engines roared to life. "Citadel Command, this is the HSS Odyssey requesting emergency departure, over," Mike called into the comms as he slid into the co-pilot chair. Static crackled in response. "Guess we're doing this the hard way." Bobby gunned the thrusters. The ship shot out of the hangar in a blaze of speed, alarms blaring in its wake. A fleet of Nasat patrol ships swooped in to intercept, energy bolts stitching the void. The Odyssey juked and jinked, its shields flaring under the onslaught. "Incoming transmission from the Citadel," Mike reported. "They're ordering us to stand down or be destroyed." Bobby's response was to push the throttle to full, the inertial dampeners straining against the G-forces as they blazed past the blockade. Once in open space, Bobby switched on the QEC. "Admiral Ivanova, this is Ambassador Grant. We have a situation." The Admiral's stern face filled the screen, streaks of silver in her dark hair. "This better be good, Grant. I don't appreciate unscheduled—" "The Council has betrayed us," Bobby cut in. "They're surrendering to the Zorgons, and they're giving them Earth." Ivanova's eyes widened. "That's a hell of an accusation. I hope you have proof." "Transmitting now." Bobby nodded to Mike, who sent the damning recording. They watched the color drain from Ivanova's face as Tharos and Zorin's words damned the Council. "Those traitorous snakes," she hissed. "This is an act of war. I'm mobilizing the fleet. Get back to Earth on the double." "Yes, ma'am." Bobby saluted as the screen went dark. "Looks like the Council picked the wrong species to screw over," Mike said grimly. as they plotted a course for the wormhole nexus. They have no idea what they've unleashed, Bobby agreed. On Thoros Prime, Tharos paced his chambers, fury etched in every line of his body. The humans' escape was unacceptable. It threatened everything. The air shimmered and a hologram of Crag, the Zorgon overlord, materialized. The reptilian behemoth fixed Tharos with a cold stare. "The Council surrenders," Tharos said, bowing low. "We will provide the requested tribute as agreed." "And the humans," Crag rumbled. "They must be brought to heel." "It will be done," Tharos assured. "The Council will deal with Earth. You have my word." As the hologram faded, Tharos turned to his aide. "Contact Commander Zorin. Tell him to intercept that human ship and destroy it." The Odyssey shuddered as another volley of plasma fire slammed into its shields. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge. "Shields at 20%, Mike yelled over the din of battle. "We can't take much more of this." On the view screen, Zorin's warship loomed, its weapons hammering relentlessly. Bobby gritted his teeth, hands white-knuckled on the controls. "Divert power to forward batteries," he ordered. "Target their—" A brilliant explosion lit the void as a barrage of quantum torpedoes struck the Nasat ship's flank. A squadron of sleek human fighters streaked past, cannons blazing. "Looks like you could use a hand, little brother." Captain Jack Grant's face appeared on the comm screen, cocky grin firmly in place. "Your timing is impeccable," Bobby said, relief washing over him. "Is the fleet—" "Right behind me," Jack confirmed. "Ivanova's bringing the big guns. Humanity won't be going quietly into the night. Not on our watch." Bobby and Mike docked the battered Odyssey in the hangar bay of Jack's flagship, the Titan. As they disembarked, Jack pulled Bobby into a tight hug. "Damn, it's good to see you in one piece," Jack said. "Looks like you've had one hell of a day." "You don't know the half of it," Bobby replied. "The Council sold us out. We need to get back to Earth and—" An urgent tone sounded over the comm. "Captain Grant, we're receiving a distress call from the colony on Xenos. They're under attack by Zorgon forces." Bobby's heart sank. The Zorgons were already targeting human settlements, trying to weaken Earth's defenses before the main invasion. "Jack, we have to help them. Those colonists won't stand a chance on their own." Jack's jaw tightened. "Ivanova's orders were clear. We need to get you back to Earth." "And let innocent people die. That's not who we are. You know that." Jack sighed. "You always were a stubborn bastard. Fine. We'll detour to Xenos and evacuate the colonists, but we can't stay long." As the Titan and its squadron dropped out of FTL near Xenos, the scale of the attack became clear. Zorgon ships swarmed the planet, raining down plasma fire on the colony below. Buildings crumbled and fires raged across the surface. "Jesus," Mike whispered. "It's a massacre." "Not if we can help it," Bobby said grimly. The human ships punched through the Zorgon blockade, trading fire as they descended into the atmosphere. Bobby, Mike and Jack led a team of Marines in a squadron of dropships, dodging anti-aircraft fire as they raced towards the besieged colony. They touched down in the ruins of the settlement, the air thick with smoke and the screams of the wounded. "Fan out and search for survivors," Jack ordered. "We'll hold the perimeter." Bobby and Mike moved through the shattered streets, the crunch of rubble beneath their boots. They found a group of terrified colonists huddled in a makeshift shelter. "It's okay," Bobby said. "We're here to get you out." As they led the colonists back to the dropships, a woman grabbed Bobby's arm. "Please, my children, they're trapped in the school. You have to help them." Bobby nodded. "We'll find them, I promise." He and Mike raced to the collapsed school building, picking their way through the debris. Faint cries echoed from beneath the rubble. "They're in there," Mike said. Ignoring the ominous groans of the unstable structure, they dug through the wreckage. Bobby lifted a slab of concrete and found two small, dust-covered faces staring up at him. "Hey there," he said softly, reaching down to lift them out. "Let's get you back to your mum." As they emerged from the building, a guttural roar froze Bobby's blood. A massive Zorgon warrior clad in spiked armor stood before them. Its eyes blazed with malevolent intelligence as it raised a crackling energy blade. "Get the kids to safety," Bobby told Mike, his voice steady. "I'll handle this." The Zorgon charged, its blade slashing down in a blaze of energy. Bobby ducked and rolled, snatching up a twisted piece of metal debris. He parried the next blow, sparks flying as the crude weapon clashed against the high-tech blade. The warrior was strong and fast, its attacks relentless. But Bobby was a skilled fighter, honed by years of training. He matched the Zorgon blow for blow, the desperate battle taking them deeper into the ruins. In a flash of inspiration, Bobby feinted left, then ducked right as the Zorgon's blade sliced through empty air. He swung his makeshift club in a lightning-fast strike, catching the warrior across the temple. The Zorgon crumpled, its blade falling from slack fingers. Bobby snatched up the energy weapon, the hilt warm in his grasp, a trophy of his victory. He sprinted back to the dropships, where Mike and Jack were ushering the last of the colonists aboard. They lifted off just as the Zorgon ships unleashed another barrage, the colony vanishing in a wave of fire. On the journey back to Earth, Bobby stared out at the stars, the Zorgon blade heavy on his hip. The battle for Xenos was over, but the war for humanity's survival had only just begun. In the command center of Earth's orbital defense platform, Admiral Ivanova studied the tactical displays with a grim frown. The Zorgon fleet was drawing closer with each passing hour, a swarm of malevolent red dots on the screens. A chime from the door interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a familiar face, one she had hoped never to lay eyes on again. "Tharos," she said coldly. "You have some nerve showing your face here." The Nasat leader spread his clawed hands in a gesture of supplication. "Admiral, please, I come in peace. The Council's surrender was a grave error, one I intend to rectify." Ivanova's eyes narrowed. "And why should I trust a single word that comes out of your lying mouth?" "Because I have information that can help you fight the Zorgons, a weakness in their ship's shields." Ivanova paused, suspicion warring with desperation. Earth needed every advantage it could get. "I'm listening," she said. "But if this is a trick, I'll personally throw you out the airlock." Tharos tapped a data crystal. The Zorgon shields operate on a specific frequency, one that can be disrupted by a precisely calibrated energy pulse. This data will allow you to modify your weapons to exploit that vulnerability. Ivanova loaded the crystal into the computer, lines of code scrolling across the screen. If this was true, "I will have my engineers verify this," she said. "In the meantime, you will be confined to quarters under guard." "Of course, Admiral. I understand your caution, but believe me when I say I am committed to making amends for the Council's mistakes." As Tharos was led away, Ivanova turned back to the displays. A faint glimmer of hope kindled in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance after all. The Titan and its battered squadron limped into Earth orbit, the rescued colonists safely aboard. As Bobby, Mike, and Jack stepped onto the command deck, Ivanova was there to greet them. "Damn fine work out there," she said. "You saved a lot of lives." Bobby handed her the Zorgon blade, "And we brought back a souvenir." Ivanova turned it over in her hands, a grim smile on her lips. "Let's hope it's not the only trophy we take from these bastards." An urgent tone sounded from the comm. "Admiral, long-range sensors have detected a massive Zorgon fleet entering the system. They'll be in weapons range within the hour." Ivanova's face hardened. "Battle stations. I want every ship in the fleet deployed and ready for combat." She turned to Bobby and Jack. "I need you two out there leading the charge. You're our best pilots and our best hope." Bobby and Jack exchanged a look, a lifetime of shared history passing between them. "We'll give them hell, Admiral," Jack said. As they raced to their fighters, the entire Earth defense fleet mobilized around them. Cruisers, destroyers, and carriers fell into formation, a wall of steel and fire ready to face the oncoming storm. In the cockpit of his fighter, Bobby gripped the controls, adrenaline surging through his veins. This was it, the moment of truth. The fate of humanity would be decided here, among the stars. He thought of all the lives counting on them, the colonists they'd saved, the billions waiting anxiously on Earth below, his brother at his side, ready to fight to the last. The Zorgon fleet surged into view, a swarm of nightmarish ships bristling with weapons. Bobby armed his modified torpedoes, praying that Tharos's information was true. "All right, people," he said over the comm. "Let's show these alien bastards what humans are made of." With a roar of engines, the human fleet charged forward, racing to meet the Zorgons head-on. Plasma fire lit the void as the two armadas clashed, the battle for Earth erupting in a cataclysm of light and fury. In the command center, Admiral Ivanova barked orders rapid fire. "Divert all power to weapons, concentrate fire on the Zorgon flagship." The bridge crew scrambled to obey, fingers flying across consoles. Tharos's intel proved invaluable as human ships opened fire, lances of modified energy tearing through the Zorgon's shields like tissue paper. The alien vessels reeled under the onslaught, explosions blossoming along their hulls. Aboard the Zorgon flagship, chaos reigned. Alarms shrieked and lights flickered as the virus Bobby uploaded ravaged the ship's systems. In the shield generator room, he ducked behind a sparking console as a trio of Zorgon soldiers stormed in, plasma rifles blazing. Bobby thumbed the activation stud on his captured energy blade, the weapon humming to life. He vaulted over the console, a blur of motion as he closed the distance. The blade sliced through armor and flesh with equal ease, Zorgon blood sizzling on its crackling surface. In seconds, the soldiers lay dead at his feet. No time to catch his breath. A shadow fell over him, and Bobby spun to face a towering Zorgon warrior, muscles bulging beneath spiked armor. The alien's eyes glowed with malevolent hunger as it raised a massive warhammer, the head wreathed in seething energy. The hammer descended with bone-crushing force, but Bobby was already moving. He rolled beneath the blow, coming up behind the warrior. His blade lashed out, scoring a glancing hit across the Zorgon's back. It roared in pain and fury, whirling to face him. They traded blows in a deadly dance, the confined space of the generator room limiting Bobby's mobility. The Zorgon pressed its advantage, immense strength driving Bobby back. A hammer blow caught him in the ribs, the impact slamming him into a bulkhead. Pain lanced through his side and he tasted blood. The Zorgon loomed over him, hammer raised for a killing stroke. Bobby's fingers closed around a severed power cable, raw energy crackling along its length. With a defiant yell, he thrust the cable into the Zorgon's face. The warrior convulsed as electricity surged through its body, the stench of burning flesh filling the air. Bobby staggered to his feet, clutching his injured ribs. He had to find Mike and Jack, had to make sure they completed their missions. Every second counted. Mike crouched in the shadows of the main power core, sweat beading his brow as he armed the last of the explosives. The timer blinked to life, red digits counting down from 15 minutes. No turning back now. He slipped out of the chamber, only to find himself face to face with a Zorgon patrol. The aliens shouted in alarm, bringing their weapons to bear. Mike dove for cover, pulse rifles spitting crimson bolts. 2 Zorgons fell, smoking holes in their chests, but more were coming. He keyed his comm. "Jack, Bobby, I've set the charges, but I'm pinned down. Could use a little help here." On the bridge, Jack struggled against the restraints binding him to a torture rack, Cragg's taunting words ringing in his ears. Tharos, a traitor all along. It was almost too much to process. Cragg loomed over him, a cruel smile splitting his reptilian face. "Pathetic human. Did you really think you could challenge the might of the Zorgon Empire? Your species will make excellent slaves, those who survive, of course." Jack spat in Cragg's face. "Fuck you, you scaly bastard. We'll never surrender." Cragg snarled, raising a clawed fist. But before he could strike, the ship bucked violently, sending the Zorgon leader stumbling. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks as the modified human weapons fire tore through the flagship's hull. Seizing his chance, Jack strained against the restraints with all his strength. The metal creaked, then snapped as adrenaline flooded his system. He launched himself at Crag with a roar of pure rage. They crashed to the deck, a tangle of limbs and flashing claws. Jack pummeled the Zorgon with all his fury, bones crunching beneath his fists. But Crag was immensely strong, his hide tough as leather. A taloned hand closed around Jack's throat, slamming him to the floor. Spots danced before Jack's eyes as he gasped for air. Crag's jaws gaped wide, rows of razor teeth dripping saliva. This was it. This was how he died. Suddenly, a burst of plasma fire struck Crag in the back, sending him reeling. Bobby stood in the entrance to the bridge, Mike at his side, weapons smoking. "Get away from my brother, you son of a bitch!" Bobby snarled. Crag whirled to face them, a new threat. Jack felt the pressure vanish from his throat as the Zorgon's grip loosened. He surged upward, snatching a jagged shard of metal from the deck. With all his remaining strength, he plunged it into Crag's eye. The Zorgon warlord howled in agony, black ichor spurting from the ruin of his eye socket. He thrashed blindly, claws raking the air. Bobby and Mike opened fire, plasma bolts stitching across Crag's body. Mortally wounded, the Zorgon leader slumped to the deck. Jack staggered over to him, gore-slicked metal shard clenched in his fist. "This is for Earth, you bastard," he growled. Crag glared up at him with his one remaining eye, hatred and defiance burning in its depths. "You've won nothing, human. The Zorgon Empire is endless. We will never stop until your world burns and your people are broken." "Not today," Jack said coldly. He raised the makeshift dagger and plunged it into Crag's throat. The Zorgon shuddered once, then lay still, dark blood pooling beneath his body. Bobby staggered out of the shield generator room, his body battered and bleeding from the ferocious battle with the Zorgon warrior. Each step sent bolts of agony shooting through his injured leg, but he gritted his teeth and pushed onward. He had to reach the hangar bay, had to regroup with Mike and Jack before the explosives detonated and the flagship tore itself apart. On the bridge, Jack pressed his advantage against Crag, raining blows down on the wounded Zorgon commander. But even injured, Crag was a formidable foe. He parried Jack's strikes with his own, snarling through the pain. "You may win this battle, human," Crag spat, black blood flecking his lips. "But you cannot stop the Doomsday Cannon. Even now, it moves into position. Your world will burn, and your people will be ash." Jack's heart turned to ice in his chest. "What are you talking about?" Crag laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. "The Doomsday Cannon, our ultimate weapon. A ship so vast, so powerful it can destroy entire planets in a single shot. And it is aimed at Earth." With a roar of fury, Jack redoubled his attack, pummeling Crag until the Zorgon commander finally slumped to the deck, unconscious or dead. Jack neither knew nor cared. He sprinted to the communications console, frantically hailing the human fleet. "Admiral Ivanova, this is Captain Grant. The Zorgons have a planet killer, some kind of doomsday weapon. We have to find it and take it out now." Ivanova's face filled the screen, her expression grim. "Understood, Captain. We're scanning for it now." Tense moments passed, the bridge shuddering as the flagship began to disintegrate around him. Then Ivanova was back, her face pale. "We've detected an enormous ship at the rear of the Zorgon formation, heavily shielded and guarded. It has to be the Doomsday Cannon." "Then that's our target," Jack said. "I'm on my way to the hangar bay. We need every ship we've got to take that thing down." In the hangar bay, Mike half-carried, half-dragged Bobby up the ramp of a Zorgon shuttle. His friend was in bad shape, his face grey with pain and blood soaking his uniform, but he was alive. They both were, somehow. Mike sealed the hatch and sprinted to the cockpit, powering up the engines. He'd never flown a Zorgon ship before, but the controls were similar enough to human designs. He coaxed the shuttle into the air, just as Jack came sprinting into the hangar in a stolen Zorgon flight suit, leaping into another shuttle. The hangar bay doors shattered as the flagship broke apart, venting debris and bodies into space. Mike gunned the engines and shot out into the battle, Jack's shuttle close behind. "Bobby's hurt bad," Mike reported over the comm. We need to get him to the Titan for medical attention. Negative, Jack replied. The Doomsday Cannon is our priority. If we don't take it out, there won't be a Titan to go back to. As the ragtag human fleet regrouped around the Zorgon wreckage, Ivanova's voice crackled over the comm. All ships, this is Admiral Ivanova. We have a new target, the Doomsday Cannon. Concentrate all fire on that monster. We have to take it down, no matter the cost. But before the fleet could mobilize, a new transmission cut in, a familiar, hated voice. Admiral Ivanova, I am Tharos. I have information vital to the survival of your species. Meet me on the neutral world of Axiom Prime, and I will share what I know of the Doomsday Cannon. Ivanova's face twisted in disgust. You have a lot of nerve, Tharos, after everything you've done. I understand your mistrust, Admiral, but the fate of billions hangs in the balance. The Doomsday Cannon must be stopped. I can help you do that. Ivanova was silent for a long moment. Then, very well, I will meet you on Axiom Prime, but if this is another trick, I swear by all the stars in the sky, I will end you myself. She turned to Jack, her expression hard. Captain Grant, you and your team will accompany me to the surface. If Tharos tries anything, I want you there to put him down. Jack nodded grimly. Understood, Admiral. As the Titan and its escort broke off from the main fleet, setting course for Axiom Prime, the battle raged on behind them. The human ships fought with desperate courage, but the Zorgon fleet was vast, and the Doomsday Cannon loomed over all, an implacable engine of destruction. Time was running out. If Tharos information couldn't help them find a way to destroy the planet killer, then all of Earth, all of humanity, was doomed. In the shuttle, Bobby drifted in and out of consciousness, his head lolling against Mike's shoulder. Mike gripped his friend's hand, silently praying to any god that might be listening. Hold on, Bobby, he thought. Just hold on. It can't end like this, it won't. But even as the thought formed, Mike couldn't quite make himself believe it. The odds they faced were insurmountable. The enemy, unstoppable. All they could do was fight to the last, and hope that somehow, impossibly, it would be enough. The human shuttle touched down on the barren surface of Zaxos Prime, kicking up a cloud of dust as its engines powered down. Admiral Ivanova emerged first, her hand resting on the pulse pistol at her hip. Bobby, Jack, Mike, and a squad of battle-hardened soldiers followed close behind, their weapons primed and ready. The coordinates Tharos had provided led them to a rocky outcropping a short distance from the landing site. As they approached, a sense of unease settled over the group. The air was too still, the silence too oppressive. Suddenly a hail of plasma fire erupted from the rocks, searing the air and sending the humans diving for cover. Zorgon soldiers poured out from hidden crevices, their reptilian eyes gleaming with malice. And at their head a familiar figure, Tharos, the traitorous Nisat leader. "Did you really think I would betray my true masters?" Tharos sneered, his energy weapon humming with deadly power. "The Zorgon Empire will crush your pathetic species, and I will be rewarded for delivering you to them." Ivanova's face twisted with rage. "You two-faced son of a bitch!" All around them the battle raged. Human soldiers clashed with Zorgon warriors in a brutal melee, the sound of pulse rifles and energy blades filling the air. Bobby, Jack, and Mike waded into the fray, their weapons flashing as they cut down the enemy. But Tharos was in a league of his own. His weapon disintegrated anything it touched, leaving smoldering piles of ash in its wake. Soldiers screamed as they were vaporized, their deaths instant and horrific. Ivanova found herself face to face with the traitor, his eyes alight with madness. "Surrender, Admiral," Tharos hissed. "Your doom is inevitable. The Doomsday Cannon will reduce Earth to a cinder, and your species will be nothing more than a memory." Ivanova's response was to lash out with a lightning-fast kick, her boot connecting with Tharos's jaw. The Nasat reeled back, then lunged forward with a snarl, his weapon slashing down. Ivanova rolled, the energy beam sizzling the air above her head. She came up firing, pulse blasts stitching across Tharos's armor, but the Nasat barely seemed to feel them. As they fought, Bobby saw a glint of metal on Tharos's wrist, a control device of some kind pulsing with an eerie light. The Zorgon soldiers moved with unnatural coordination, as if guided by an unseen hand. "The wrist device," Bobby shouted to Jack and Mike over the din of battle. "It's controlling the Zorgons. We have to destroy it." The three men forged through the chaos, blasting Zorgons left and right as they closed in on Tharos. But the Nasat leader was too fast, too strong. His weapon flashed and Mike cried out, clutching a smoking hole in his shoulder. "Mike!" Jack roared, launching himself at Tharos in a fury. But a sweep of the energy blade sent him flying, his armor sizzling. Bobby leaped over a fallen Zorgon, his own blade humming to life. Tharos whirled to face him, a sneer on his reptilian face. "Pathetic human, you think you can challenge me?" Their blades clashed in a blaze of sparks, energy fields crackling against each other. Bobby strained against Tharos's inhuman strength, his muscles screaming. In the corner of his eye he saw Ivanova, battered but unbroken, struggling to her feet. She raised her pulse pistol, aiming for Tharos's head. The Nasat snarled, bringing his blade down in a crushing blow. Bobby's knees buckled. And he twisted aside at the last second, the energy blade sizzling past his face. In one fluid motion, he brought his own weapon slashing up, and severed Tharos's arm at the elbow. The Nasat leader howled in agony, staring in disbelief at the sparking stump. The control device tumbled to the ground, crushed beneath Bobby's boot. All around them the Zorgon soldiers staggered, clutching their heads. Their coordination vanished, replaced by confusion and fear. "Now!" Ivanova shouted, and the human soldiers surged forward, cutting down the disoriented Zorgons with ruthless efficiency. Tharos slumped to his knees, his lifeblood pooling beneath him. Bobby stood over him, energy blade poised. "The Doomsday Cannon," Tharos rasped. "It's controlled from a base on Zaxos Prime's moon. You'll never reach it in time." "We'll see about that," Bobby growled. With a final gurgling breath, Tharos collapsed, his eyes going dark. Ivanova limped over, her face grim. "We need to move now. If that cannon fires—" "It won't," Bobby said, his voice hard. "Jack, Mike, and I will lead the assault. We'll tear that base apart piece by piece if we have to." Ivanova nodded. "Do whatever it takes. The fate of Earth rests on your shoulders." As the human ships lifted off from Zaxos Prime, streaking towards the looming moon, Bobby felt a sense of grim determination settle over him. One way or another, this ended today. The Zorgons had no idea what was coming for them. Bobby's stealth ship sliced through the starry void, its cloaking field rendering it invisible to the Zorgon sensors. Beside him, Jack and Mike piloted their own ships, each carrying a squad of battle-hardened human commandos. The looming bulk of the Doomsday Cannon base grew larger in their view screens, a monstrosity of metal bristling with defenses. "Remember the plan," Bobby said over the comm. 3 entry points. My team takes the main gate, Jack's squad hits the power core, and Mike secures the command center. We get in, we take out that cannon, and we get the hell out. No heroics." "Copy that," Jack replied, his voice tight with tension. Mike just grunted in acknowledgement, his focus laser-sharp. The ships split formation as they neared the base, each angling for its designated infiltration point. Bobby's ship skimmed low over the pitted lunar surface, kicking up plumes of dust as it approached the towering main gates. "Brace for impact," he warned his team, gripping the controls tight. The ship slammed into the gates at full throttle, the reinforced hull crumpling but holding as metal screamed and tore. Proximity mines detonated in brilliant flashes, but the ship's shields held. They'd breached the perimeter, but the element of surprise was gone. Alarms wailed and Zorgon pulsefire stitched the air as Bobby's squad poured out, weapons blazing. Zorgon guards boiled out of guard posts and bunkers, a tide of scales and claws and gnashing teeth. Bobby led the charge, his plasma rifle spitting blue fire. Zorgons fell under the onslaught, but more surged forward to take their place, heedless of losses. "Push forward!" Bobby roared over the din of battle. "We have to keep them focused on us." At the base's north face, Jack's team crept through the twisting ventilation shafts, the metal walls pressing close. The power core was deep in the base's bowels, protected by layers of armor and failsafes, but every fortress had its weak points, and the vents were the chink in this one's armor. 200 meters to target, Jack whispered, consulting his HUD. Check charges and prepare to... A hissing shriek echoed up the shaft, followed by the clatter of claws on metal. Contact rear, a commando yelled. They're in the vents. Pulse fire strobed in the narrow confines, as lithe Zorgon drones poured out of side passages, all fang and claw. Jack cursed, swinging his rifle around to fire past his men, the tight quarters turning the battle into a brutal close-quarters melee. At the base's peak, mag clamps thunked into the armored hull as Mike's team ascended, grappling lines reeling them up the sheer walls. Reaching the roof, they moved in silent unison, breaching charges, turning a reinforced hatch into molten slag. Mike was the first one through, rifle scanning for targets. The command center was organized chaos, Zorgon officers shouting orders as the base shook under the force of the human assault. Mike's team fanned out, picking their targets with ruthless efficiency. The first volley cut down the Zorgon guards before they could even draw their weapons. Secure the control room, Mike ordered, advancing on the main console. Grez, Kovacs, cover the door. Zhang, you're with me. A towering Zorgon commander lunged from behind the console with a roar, energy blade flashing. Mike sidestepped the blow and rammed his rifle stock into the alien's throat, crushing its windpipe. The Zorgon fell, choking on its own blood. Mike stepped over the body and scanned the console, his heart sinking. The cannon's firing sequence had already begun, the countdown to Earth's annihilation ticking down with merciless precision. The firing sequence is already initiated, he shouted into his comm. I'm trying to abort, but I don't know if I can. At the main gates, Bobby's team was being pushed back step by bloody step, a relentless tide of Zorgons threatening to overwhelm their position. And then, with a bone-chilling roar, a new threat emerged from the base's depths. Towering over the rank-and-file Zorgons, the genetically engineered super-soldiers waded into the fray, their armor shrugging off plasma fire like rain. They moved with terrifying speed and strength, tossing aside human commandos like ragdolls and shredding through barricades with their bare claws. "Fall back," Bobby ordered, his rifle growing hot in his hands as he poured fire into the approaching juggernauts. "Jack, Mike, where the hell are you? We can't hold them." In the vents, Jack's team was fighting for every inch, the cramped confines filled with blood and viscera, as they battled the Zorgon drones hand to hand. But meter by hard-fought meter, they advanced, drawing ever closer to their target. "Almost there," Jack panted, slamming a fresh power cell into his rifle. "Just a little further." In the command center, Mike's fingers flew over the controls, desperately trying to halt the doomsday cannon's inexorable countdown. Sweat poured down his face, the weight of billions of lives pressing down on him. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the base to its foundations. Consoles erupted in showers of sparks and the lights flickered ominously. In the power core, Jack's team had reached their objective, detonating their charges in a cataclysmic blast that tore through the base's guts. On the console before Mike, the countdown slowed and then stopped. The doomsday cannon's monstrous energies began to power down, its planet-killing fury averted at the last possible second. Mike sagged with relief, a ragged cheer going up from his team. But their victory was short-lived. New alarms began to wail, the base's self-destruct sequence triggered by the power core's destruction. Automated voices blared warnings as red lights pulsed ominously. "All teams evacuate now," Mike yelled into the comm. "The whole base is going to blow. We've got minutes at most." Bobby and Jack's teams disengaged from their fights, the Zorgons suddenly more interested in their own survival than killing humans. It was a mad scramble as the strike team raced for their extraction points, dodging debris and explosions as the base tore itself apart around them. They piled into their stealth ships, engines screaming as they clawed for the safety of space. Behind them, the doomsday cannon base erupted in a titanic fireball, the explosion consuming the lunar surface in a hellish inferno. Gas alarms blared and the base shuddered around them. Bobby, Jack and Mike rallied their teams for a desperate evacuation. The countdown to self-destruct echoed through the crumbling corridors, a relentless reminder of the impending doom. "Move, move, move!" Bobby shouted over the chaos, urging his commandos forward. They raced through the labyrinthine passages, their footsteps pounding against the metal grating. But the Zorgons were not about to let their prey escape so easily. From the shadows, the genetically engineered super soldiers emerged, their eyes gleaming with predatory hunger. They moved with terrifying speed and agility, their enhanced musculature rippling beneath their armored exoskeletons. Bobby's team met them head-on, plasma rifles blazing. The narrow corridor became a killing field, awash in the eerie glow of energy weapons and the acrid stench of burnt flesh. The humans fought with desperate ferocity, but the super soldiers seemed impervious to pain, shrugging off wounds that would have felled a lesser being. "We can't hold them for long," one of the commandos yelled, his face slick with sweat and blood. "We need to fall back." Bobby gritted his teeth, knowing that every second they delayed brought them closer to annihilation. But he also knew that if they didn't buy enough time for the others to escape, all their sacrifices would be in vain. "Negative," he barked. "We hold the line, no matter the cost." With a roar of defiance, Bobby charged into the fray, his energy blade flashing in the dimness. He wove a deadly dance among the super soldiers, his blade finding gaps in their armor, severing limbs and piercing vital organs. His commandos rallied around him, their weapons spitting fire, their battle cries echoing through the corridor. In another part of the base, Jack and Mike led their teams towards the extraction point, their path taking them through a cavernous hangar bay. The bay was in chaos, with Zorgon ships and equipment exploding as the base's self-destruct sequence tore through its infrastructure. Suddenly, a monstrous shape loomed out of the smoke and flames. It was a Zorgon mech, a heavily armed and armored combat robot, bristling with weapons and shielded by a crackling energy field. "Scatter!" Jack yelled as the mech opened fire, its plasma cannons vaporizing everything in their path. The human commandos dove for cover, their weapons seeming puny and ineffective against the mech's formidable defenses. Jack and Mike exchanged a grim look, knowing that they had to take out the mech if they were to have any chance of escape. With silent communication born of years of fighting side by side, they split up, each seeking to flank the mechanical behemoth. Jack darted from cover to cover, drawing the mech's fire, his armor absorbing glancing blows that would have killed an unprotected human. Mike circled around behind the mech, seeking a weakness, a chink in its armored shell. He spotted it, a flickering in the mech's energy shield, a momentary gap in its coverage. With a triumphant shout, Mike lunged forward, jamming a plasma grenade into the gap. The grenade detonated with a blinding flash, the explosion tearing through the mech's internal systems. The mech staggered, its legs crumpling beneath it. It toppled to the ground with an earth-shaking crash, its weapons falling silent. But the victory was short-lived. The mech's death throes had claimed the lives of several human commandos, their bodies crushed beneath its massive bulk. Jack and Mike regrouped, their faces grim as they surveyed the carnage. They had won the battle, but at a terrible cost. Back in the depths of the base, Bobby and his team were fighting a losing battle against the super soldiers. They had bottlenecked the Zorgons in the narrow corridor, using the choke point to even the odds, but they were running out of time and ammunition. Bobby's blade flashed, decapitating a super soldier, but another surged forward to take its place. The humans were being pushed back, step by bloody step, the super soldier's relentless advance seemingly unstoppable. Just as all seemed lost, a series of deafening explosions rocked the corridor. The super soldiers staggered, their advance faltering as shrapnel tore through their ranks. Bobby looked up to see Jack and Mike charging into the fray, the weapons salvaged from the fallen mech clutched in their hands. The tide had turned. The reunited strike team surged forward, the mech's heavy weapons tearing through the super soldier's armor like tissue paper. The Zorgons fell back, their formation crumbling under the onslaught. "Go, go, go," Bobby yelled, urging his team towards the extraction point. They ran, their lungs burning, their muscles screaming with fatigue, the countdown to self-destruct ringing in their ears. They burst into the hangar bay, the stealth ships waiting for them like black angels of deliverance. They piled aboard, strapping themselves in as the pilots gunned the engines. The ships lifted off, rocketing out of the hangar just as the base's reactors went critical. Behind them, the moon exploded in a blinding flash of light, the shockwave buffeting the ships as they streaked away. The doomsday cannon, the Zorgon base, the super soldiers, all were consumed in the maelstrom of destruction. In the cockpit of the lead ship, Bobby slumped in his seat, his armor scorched and dented, his body aching with 100 wounds. But they had done it. They had struck a crippling blow against the Zorgons, had given humanity a fighting chance. As the strike team approached the human fleet, they were greeted as heroes, the comm channels filled with cheers and congratulations. But the celebration was cut short by an urgent transmission from Admiral Ivanova. "Strike team, be advised," Ivanova's voice crackled over the comm, her tone grim. "We have a situation. The remnants of the Zorgon fleet have launched a surprise attack on Earth. They caught us with our pants down and they're hitting us hard." Bobby felt a cold knot of dread settle in his stomach. After everything they had been through, all the sacrifices they had made, the fight still wasn't over. "Admiral, we're on our way," he said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his heart. "We'll make those bastards pay for every inch of Earth soil." As the strike team's ships streaked towards Earth, ready to join the final battle for humanity's survival, Bobby knew that this was it. This was the moment that would decide the fate of their species, and he would be damned if he let the Zorgons take it from them. The final battle had begun, and Bobby, Jack, and Mike would once again lead the charge, their courage and determination the beacon that would light the way to victory or oblivion. As the remnants of the Zorgon fleet descended upon Earth like a swarm of locusts, the planet's defenses rallied for a final, desperate stand. Squadrons of sleek human fighters raced to meet the alien invaders, their hulls glinting in the sun as they clashed in a fierce dance of fire and metal. On the ground, batteries of anti-orbital cannons thundered, sending streaks of superheated plasma lancing into the sky. In the thick of the battle, Admiral Ivanova stood resolute on the bridge of her flagship, the Titan. Her eyes flashed with determination as she barked orders to her crew, coordinating the defense with a master strategist's precision. "Concentrate fire on the Zorgon dreadnoughts," she commanded, "and get me a status update on the ground forces." "Aye, Admiral," her tactical officer responded. "The 15th Powered Armor Battalion has engaged the enemy in New York. They're holding the line, but taking heavy casualties." Ivanova gritted her teeth. They had to buy more time for the evacuation ships to escape. High above the fray, Bobby, Jack, and Mike streaked towards the Zorgon command ship in their heavily armed assault shuttle. They had one chance to end this, to cut the head off the snake and throw the enemy into disarray. "There it is," Bobby said grimly as the massive alien vessel loomed before them, bristling with weapons. "Time to show these bastards what humans are made of." With a roar of engines, they punched through the command ship's hangar shields, skidding to a halt amidst a hail of sparks and debris. The ramp slammed down, and they charged out, weapons blazing. Zorgon soldiers swarmed to meet them, plasma bolts crisscrossing the hangar in a deadly web. But the human trio was a force to be reckoned with, their advanced weapons and battle-honed skills more than a match for the alien horde. They fought their way through the ship, corridor by blood-soaked corridor, leaving a trail of Zorgon corpses in their wake. But with each battle, the resistance grew stronger, the enemies more cunning. It was as if the Zorgons had been studying their every move, anticipating their strategies. And then, as they neared the bridge, they found out why. The door slid open to reveal a towering figure clad in jet-black armor, a cruel smile twisting his lipless mouth. Zorkax, the new Zorgon commander. "Welcome, humans," he rumbled, his voice a grating electronic rasp. "I've been expecting you." Bobby raised his pulse rifle, but Zorkax moved with blinding speed. a shimmering energy field deflecting the shots. He lunged forward, a crackling power blade shearing Bobby's weapon in half. "Pathetic," Zorkax sneered. "I have studied your tactics, your weaknesses. You cannot hope to defeat me." But Bobby, Jack, and Mike had faced impossible odds before. They scattered, flanking the commander, probing for an opening. Zorkax was fast, strong, his cybernetically enhanced body shrugging off blows that would have felled a lesser foe. But the humans were relentless, driven by the knowledge that the fate of their world hung in the balance. Across the solar system, the battle raged on. Human ships and Zorgon warships clashed in titanic duels, the void alight with the flash of explosions and the glare of energy weapons. On Earth, the ground trembled as the powered armor troopers went toe-to-toe with the Zorgon invaders, the screams of the dying mingling with the roar of heavy weapons fire. In the command ship's bridge, Bobby rolled to avoid a scything blow from Zorkax's blade, the deck plates shattering beneath the impact. They had already destroyed the ship's main weapons array, cutting off its ability to rain death upon the planet below. But Zorkax fought on, an implacable juggernaut of hatred and technology. Bobby's rifle clicked empty. He reached for another magazine, but his hand closed on empty air. He was out of ammo, out of options. And then his fingers brushed against something else. The energy blade, the trophy he had taken from his first Zorgon kill. He drew it from its sheath, the azure glow of its blade casting eerie shadows across the bridge. Zorkax laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Do you really think to defeat me with that toy?" Bobby didn't waste time with words. He charged, a wordless battle cry tearing from his throat. Zorkax's blade slashed down, but Bobby twisted aside, the edge passing a hair's breadth from his face. He saw it then, a hairline fracture in the commander's armor just above his cyber heart. A weakness. Bobby lunged, pouring every ounce of his strength, his rage, his desperate hope into the thrust. The energy blade punched through the crack, sinking deep into Zorkax's chest. The Zorgon commander staggered back, black ichor spurting from the wound. He gave a disbelieving gurgle and crashed to the deck, the light fading from his eyes. Bobby stood over the fallen Zorgon, chest heaving, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. Jack and Mike limped to his side, their armor scorched and rent. "It's not over yet," Jack said grimly, nodding towards the bridge consoles. We've got to end this." Fingers flying over the controls, they overrode the command ship's systems, broadcasting a signal to the Zorgon fleet. A simple message: stand down. Across the solar system, Zorgon ships shuddered to a halt, their weapons falling silent. Many struck their colors, surrendering to the victorious humans, but some fought on, too proud or too fanatical to accept defeat. And so, as the Zorgon command ship drifted lifeless, its commander slain, Bobby, Jack, and Mike prepared to rejoin the battle. They would fight to the last, to defend their homeworld and end the Zorgon threat once and for all. For Earth, for humanity, until the very end. With Zorkax dead and the Zorgon command ship crippled, the tide of battle turned. Bobby, Jack, and Mike led the human fleet in a relentless assault on the remaining Zorgon forces. Sleek human fighters danced through the void, picking off Zorgon ships with precision strikes. The Titan and her sister ships, their hulls scarred but unbowed, unleashed withering broadsides that shattered enemy formations. Desperation turned to rout, as more and more Zorgon ships struck their colors, their crews realizing the futility of further resistance. The once proud armada was reduced to a scattered handful of diehards, fighting on more out of spite than hope of victory. Around Earth, the planet's valiant defenders held the line. Reinforcements poured in from human colonies across the stars, rallying to their homeworld's defense. A wall of steel and fire encircled the blue-green jewel, an impenetrable barrier against the Zorgon onslaught. But even as victory seemed at hand, a new threat emerged. A vast alien ship, dwarfing even the mightiest dreadnoughts, blinked into existence on the edge of the battle. Its hull was a nightmarish fusion of organic and mechanical, pulsing with malevolent energy. Without warning or provocation, it opened fire. Searing beams of plasma sliced through human and Zorgon ships alike, burning through shields and melting hull plates to slag. Fighters vanished in puffs of incandescent gas, snuffed out like candle flames in a hurricane. "Admiral, we're being hailed," the comms officer called out, her voice tight with fear. Ivanova opened the channel, the bridge speakers filling with a chittering insectile language. The universal translator struggled to make sense of it, spitting out fragments of meaning. Eradicate, infestation, cleanse. "This is Admiral Elena Ivanova of the Earth Defense Fleet," she said, putting every ounce of authority she could muster into her voice. "Cease your attack immediately or face the consequences." The only reply was another salvo of world-shattering firepower. "Jack, Bobby, Mike, please tell me you have a plan," Ivanova said grimly. In the cockpit of his fighter, Bobby gritted his teeth. "We have to take that thing out from the inside. It's the only way." "Agreed," Jack said. "We'll need a strike team, our best and brightest." "I'll prep a Zorgon shuttle," Mike chimed in. "Their IFF codes should get us close enough to board." Ivanova nodded. "Do it, and Godspeed." As the alien behemoth carved a swath of destruction through the battling fleets, the strike team made their preparations. A dozen hardened veterans, each handpicked for their skill and courage, mustered in the Titan's hangar bay. Bobby, Jack, and Mike were the last to arrive, their faces grim but determined. They knew the odds they faced, the slender thread upon which humanity's fate now hung. But they would not shrink from this challenge. They were humanity's champions, the tip of the spear, and they would not fail. They boarded the captured Zorgon shuttle, its alien contours still bearing the scars of battle. As the hangar bay doors yawned open and the blackness of space beckoned, each man and woman on that ship knew they might not return. But they also knew that their sacrifice might be the only thing standing between Earth and annihilation. And so, with a silent prayer on their lips, they plunged into the void, hurtling towards the monster that threatened all they held dear. The shuttle wove through the chaos of the battle, its Zorgon EFF codes a flimsy shield against the maelstrom of destruction. Plasma blasts and missile contrails crisscrossed the void, the fabric of space itself seeming to shudder under the fury of the onslaught. But the strike team's luck held. They slipped through the firestorm unscathed, the alien dreadnought looming ever larger in their viewports. Up close, its scale was staggering, its hull a twisted labyrinth of spines and pulsing conduits. They picked their approach vector carefully, aiming for what looked like a hangar bay on the behemoth's flank. As they drew closer, the bay's atmospheric containment field shimmered into view, a gossamer-thin barrier against the vacuum of space. Bobby nodded to the pilot. "Punch it!" The shuttle surged forward, its engines flaring. It struck the containment field like a bullet hitting water, the barrier rippling and deforming around the ship's hull. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed like they might not make it through. But then they were inside, the shuttle skidding across the hangar deck in a shower of sparks. The strike team was already moving, piling out of the ship with weapons raised, scanning for threats. What they saw defied belief. The hangar was a vast cavernous space, its walls pulsing with eerie bioluminescence, and everywhere, skittering and chittering in the shadows, were the aliens themselves. They were insectoid horrors, their carapaces gleaming like polished obsidian. Multifaceted eyes glittered with malevolent intelligence, and razor-sharp mandibles clacked with hunger. The creatures surged forward, a chitinous tide of claws and fangs. The strike team opened fire, the air filled with the staccato bark of pulse rifles and the sizzling hiss of plasma bolts. Aliens fell by the dozens, their ichor splattering the deck. But for every one that fell, two more seemed to take its place, an endless swarm pouring from the depths of the ship. "We have to move," Jack shouted over the din of battle. "The reactor core is our target." They fought their way deeper into the ship, following the twisting organic corridors. Strange glowing runes pulsed on the walls, and the air was thick with the stench of alien musk. At every turn the insectoid horrors attacked, their screeches echoing through the labyrinthine passages. The strike team fought with grim determination, their ammo dwindling and their armor scorched and pitted. In the claustrophobic confines of the alien ship, it was a war of attrition, a bloody slog through a nightmare-made flesh. But step by hard-fought step, they pushed onward, driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. Finally, they reached the reactor chamber. It was a vast spherical space dominated by a pulsing mass of raw energy that hurt the eyes to look at. Around it swarmed the alien warriors, their chitinous forms silhouetted against the hellish glow. "Cover me," Bobby yelled, sprinting for the reactor controls. A plasma bolt sizzled past his ear, close enough to singe his hair. He didn't stop, didn't dare to. His fingers flew over the alien controls, his suit's onboard AI translating the insectoid runes. He worked frantically, sweat stinging his eyes, the sounds of battle raging all around him. And then, with a final triumphant keystroke, it was done. The reactor began to overload, a rising whine building in the air. Alarms shrieked, the lighting shifting to a pulsing red. "Go, go, go," Bobby shouted. "This whole place is going to blow." They ran, fighting every step of the way. The aliens swarmed after them, driven to a frenzy by the klaxons and the flickering lights. They could sense their ship's imminent destruction, and their desperation made them all the more vicious. In the chaos of their retreat, Jack stumbled, an alien warrior leaping onto his back. Its claws tore into his armor, shredding the ceramic plates like paper. Mike turned, raising his rifle, but Jack waved him off. "Go," he yelled. "Get out of here." With a roar of defiance, he grappled with the creature, both of them tumbling to the deck in a tangle of limbs. Mike hesitated, anguish etched on his face, but Bobby grabbed his arm. "We have to go," he said. "We can't help him now." Tears streaming down his face, Mike let himself be pulled away. They ran, the sound of Jack's final battle echoing behind them. They burst into the hangar bay, the shuttle waiting where they'd left it. They piled aboard, Bobby throwing himself into the pilot's seat. His hands shook as he fired up the engines, the ship lifting off even before the ramp had fully closed. They rocketed out of the hangar, the alien ship shuddering and convulsing around them. Explosions chained through its hull, venting atmosphere and debris into the void. And then, with a final titanic blast, the dreadnought exploded. The shockwave slammed into the shuttle, sending it tumbling end over end. Bobby fought with the controls, struggling to right the ship. Through the viewports he could see the battling fleets, human and Zorgon alike, reeling from the blast. Ships tumbled out of formation, their shields flickering and failing. For a moment the fighting ceased, a stunned silence falling over the battlefield. In that moment it seemed as if anything was possible, as if the cycle of war and hatred might finally be broken. The shuttle limped back to the Titan, its hull scorched and battered. As it settled onto the hangar deck, the ramp lowered, revealing a grim-faced Bobby and Mike, the surviving members of the strike team staggering out behind them. Admiral Ivanova was there to meet them, her eyes widening as she took in their haggard appearance, the empty spaces in their ranks. "Jack," she said softly. Bobby shook his head, his voice choked with emotion. "He didn't make it. He sacrificed himself to buy us time." Ivanova closed her eyes, a single tear tracing down her cheek. He was a hero, they all were. In the hours that followed, as the fleets regrouped and tended to their wounds, the Zorgon leadership reached out, seeking a truce. Their forces were shattered, their will to fight broken. The Galactic Council, shaken by how close they had come to annihilation, extended an olive branch to humanity. A seat at the table, a chance to forge a new path. But for Bobby and Mike, standing among the ruins of their ships, the taste of victory was bitter. They had won, but at a terrible cost. Friends and comrades, brothers and sisters in arms, all gone. And in the depths of space, the insectoid threat still lurked, licking its wounds but far from defeated. They knew, with a cold certainty, that this was only the beginning. Earth was safe for now, but the war for the galaxy's soul was far from over, and humanity would need to be ready, to adapt and innovate and stand united, if they hoped to survive the trials to come. Bobby looked out at the stars, at the infinite void that had taken so much from him. But in that moment he also felt a flicker of hope, of determination. They would rebuild, they would prepare, and when the next threat came, as it surely would, humanity would be ready to meet it head-on. For Earth, for the fallen, for the future,